Before we start this off, I just want to say sorry for being MIA on the channel. I've had some things going on that I needed to take care of. That's all settled now, so I'm back and we're going to get right into this. So here is part 3 in the NES Controversial Games series with another 5 controversial NES games. Raid 2020, released for the NES in 1989, garnered significant controversy due to its depiction of drug use and dystopian themes. Set in a grim future where drug lords dominate society, the game cast players as a law enforcement officer tasked with eradicating the rampant drug problem. The dark and gritty storyline, which included elements such as drug raids and confrontations with addicts, was a stark contrast to the more lighthearted, family-friendly games typically found on the NES. Critics and parents were particularly concerned about the game's portrayal of drugs and the moral implications of its violent gameplay, raising questions about the appropriateness of such themes for young audiences. Moreover, the game's controversial nature was amplified by its execution and presentation. Raid 2020 was criticized for its graphic imagery and its unsettling atmosphere, which many felt were too intense for the console's primary demographic. The game's depiction of a bleak, crime-ridden future, combined with its focus on drug-related violence, made it a lightning rod for debates about video game content and its impact on children. These discussions were part of a larger conversation happening at the time about the role of video games in society and the responsibility of game developers and publishers. Despite the controversy, Raid 2020 has maintained a certain cult status among retro gaming enthusiasts, remembered for its bold attempt to tackle serious issues within the constraints of an 8-bit platform. Super Pitfall released for the NES in 1987 and became controversial not for its mature themes or graphic content, but for its notorious gameplay and design issues. As a reimagining of the classic Pitfall game, expectations were high, but players quickly found themselves frustrated by its poorly executed mechanics. The game featured a sprawling maze-like environment filled with hidden traps, invisible platforms, and cryptic puzzles that were nearly impossible to solve without a guide. Critics and players alike decried its lack of intuitive design, arguing that it relied too heavily on trial and error, leading to an experience that was more frustrating than fun. This poor reception highlighted the growing pains of translating successful arcade games to home consoles, where different design philosophies often clashed. Adding to the controversy was the game's numerous technical flaws, including frequent glitches and inconsistent collision detection, which made progress feel random and unfair. The graphics and sound were also considered subpar, even by the standards of the time, contributing to the sense that Super Pitfall was a rushed and poorly crafted product. These issues led to widespread disappointment and backlash from fans of the original Pitfall series, who felt that the NES version did not live up to its legacy. The negative reception of Super Pitfall sparked discussions about quality control and the importance of playtesting in game development, underlining the challenges faced by developers during the rapidly evolving video game market of the late 1980s. Despite its controversial reception, Super Pitfall remains a noteworthy example of how high expectations and poor executions can collide, leaving a lasting impact on a game's reputation. Bible Adventures, released for the NES in 1991 by Wisdom Tree, sparked controversy due to its religious content and the unconventional manner of its distribution. Unlike most NES games, which were officially licensed by Nintendo, Bible Adventures was an unlicensed title. This meant it bypassed Nintendo's rigorous quality control and approval process, leading to concerns about the game's standards and its potential impact on the broader gaming market. The game's religious themes, which included reenacting stories from the Bible, such as Noah's Ark and David and Goliath, also drew mixed reactions. Some parents and religious groups praised the game for providing a family-friendly alternative to more violent or secular games, while others criticized it for its simplistic and sometimes inaccurate portrayals of biblical events. Moreover, the gameplay and design of Bible Adventures received significant criticism. The game was often described as clunky and poorly made. with repetitive tasks and frustrating mechanics. Players had to collect animals and items while dealing with awkward controls and lackluster graphics. Despite these issues, the game's overt religious messaging was the primary point of contention. Critics argued that Bible Adventures was more of a didactic tool than an entertaining game, leading to debates about the role of religious content in video games and whether such titles should adhere to the same standards as other commercial games. The controversy surrounding Bible Adventures highlighted the challenges of integrating educational or religious themes into the gaming medium while maintaining the entertainment value and quality that players expect. Despite its polarizing reception, Bible Adventures remains a unique artifact in the history of NES games, reflecting the diverse and often contentious landscape of early video game development. Before we move on with the rest of this list, I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know about the games on this list or any of the games I've mentioned in previous lists. Let's get some conversations going in the comments below. And while you're down there, why don't you leave a like? Alright, back to the list. Nightshade, released for the NES in 1992, stands out as a controversial game due to its dark tone and mature themes, which were unusual for the platform. Set in a gritty, crime-ridden city, the game follows the protagonist Nightshade as he attempts to take down a criminal mastermind named Sutek. The game combined elements of action and adventure with unique point-and-click interface, offering a more complex and narrative-driven experience than typical NES titles. Its mature storyline, involving crime, corruption, and vigilantism, drew criticism from players and watchdog groups concerned about exposing young players to such heavy themes. This criticism was amplified by the game's darker visual style and atmosphere, which contrasted sharply with the more colorful and whimsical games commonly associated with the NES. Adding to the controversy was the game's difficulty and design choices. Nightshade was known for its challenging puzzles and non-linear progression, which some players found frustrating. The game featured a limited lives system, and upon losing all lives, players would see a game over screen where Nightshade is strapped to a table with a laser descending toward him, a scene reminiscent of classic spy thrillers, but deemed too intense for younger viewers. Furthermore, the game included references to adult concepts and sarcastic humor that were atypical for NES games, sparking debates about appropriate content in video games. Despite these controversies, Nightshade has been praised for its ambition and innovative blends of genres, earning a cult following among retro gaming enthusiasts who appreciate its unique approach and willingness to push the boundaries of what an NES game could be. Mighty Bomb Jack, released for the NES in 1986, and became a source of controversy, primarily due to its notorious difficulty and perceived unfair gameplay mechanics. As a sequel to the arcade hit Bomb Jack, expectations were high, but the NES version quickly garnered a reputation for being exceedingly hard and unforgiving. Players controlled Jack, navigating through a pyramid filled with dangerous enemies and traps while collecting bombs to progress through the levels. The game's difficulty spike with random enemy placements and the requirement to collect bombs in a specific sequence to avoid penalties left many players frustrated. Critics argued that the game's punishing design was not just challenging, but borderline unfair, detracting from the overall fun and playability. Adding to the controversy was the game's scoring and power-up system, which confused many players. Mighty Bomb Jack featured a unique but convoluted system where collecting a certain item could either help or hinder the player, depending on how they were used. This lack of clarity led to a steep learning curve and a sense of trial and error that many found off-putting. Furthermore, the game was criticized for its repetitive levels and lack of innovation compared to other NES titles of the time, leading some to view it as a step backward in game design. Despite these issues, Mighty Bomb Jack has since developed a cult following, with some players appreciating its challenging nature and nostalgic charm. So the boy fell asleep. As we've explored in this series, the NES era was not only a time for innovation and creativity, but also a period marked by significant controversies that helped shape the future of video gaming. From Golgo 13 and its mature themes to the punishing difficulty of Mighty Bomb Jack, these games pushed boundaries in ways that sparked debates among parents, critics, and players alike. Each title, with its unique approach and content, contributed to ongoing discussions about the role of video games in entertainment and society. They forced both developers and the broader community to confront challenging questions about representation, censorship, and the balance between artistic expression and audience expectations. Reflecting on these controversial NES games, it's clear that they played a crucial role in the evolution of the medium. They serve as reminders of a time when the gaming industry was still finding its footing and exploring the vast potential of what video games could be. The lessons learned from these controversies continue to influence game development today, reminding us of the importance of innovation, the impact of content on diverse audiences, and the need for thoughtful, inclusive design. Thank you so much for watching. What are your thoughts on the games on this list, or any of the other lists I've done? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like, and if you didn't, that other button seems to work pretty well too. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a plethora of gaming-related content. And, hint hint, you'll want to stay tuned, because we're going to move from the NES to my favorite console, the Super Nintendo, next, and look at some controversial games for that system, so you'll want to stay tuned. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.